Good morning. It's time to get InTouch. InTouch is a public affairs show dedicated to improving the lives of Susquehanna Valley residents. I'm Freddi Hammer, News Director at Backyard Broadcasting. If you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, sad, or isolated during this difficult time of uncertainty, dealing with transitioning into staying home and following Governor Tom Wolf's mandate to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus, there are resources where you or a loved one can get help if you're facing a mental health crisis. Today, I'm joined by Keith Wagner, Administrator for Lycoming Clinton County Mental Health and Intellectual Disability Program, and James Hicklin, County Mental Health Director of Lycoming and Clinton County Mental Health. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Freddi.
If I could just address you first, Keith, as you've worked with mental health in the past, tell me a little bit about your background.
Oh, well, I have worked with the Mental Health and Intellectual Disabilities Program since 1990. Oh, I feel so old. I actually started, we're a joinder, so it's a bi-county program that also includes Lycoming County Children and Youth. Mm-hmm. And when I started, I was a children and youth caseworker for the first 3 years. Then I moved into mental health and intellectual disabilities, and I did special programming there for about 10 years. And then I moved into administration, and I've worked in administration ever since. I became the administrator at the end of 2016.
And James, can you tell me a little bit about your background with mental health and the things you've done?
Sure. I started with the agency in 1994 as a crisis worker, worked in the crisis unit for a number of years, an assessment. Then I moved to the intellectual disabilities unit, and I moved into this position as county mental health director almost a year ago.
So, James, you might have a very good grip at this time, sort of almost on the front line of what you're doing in the mental health community, seeing people really feeling bad at this time because of the news we're receiving about COVID-19. What kind of behavior is normal at this time for letting people know that they're not alone?
Well, humans are social creatures. You know, we seek out the interaction and thrive on the interaction of others. You know, at this point, you know, we're distancing ourselves for very important reasons. But as time goes on and we don't have that human contact, combine that with being bombarded with you know what seems like constant bad news, mm-hmm. You know, day after day, I think it's natural for people to experience things like sadness, depression, hopelessness, a change in their regular routines. They're not sleeping regularly, not eating regularly. Maybe loss of some interest in activities that they had once enjoyed. All those things are a typical response to this sort of situation.
As Jim mentioned, Keith, you as being a social worker with children in the past, how does this affect children in a family when the parents are feeling unsettled?
Anxious, I think, because children really rely on regular patterns. You know, we'll get up and go to school, we have breakfast, we do things at a regular time every day. Mm-hmm. And when that starts to fall apart and the parents start to withdraw or express anger or frustration or fear, all of that gets translated to the children, and you start to see acting out behaviors. In fact, we've been getting calls about children who are more active and more rambunctious than they ordinarily are. For parents, then that just heightens that intensity of okay, this is a very anxious time, and now I've got, you know, my kids are kind of acting out.
Do you have any tips for parents at this time as far as what can they read that may give them information but isn't going to cause them to go so far over the edge as feeling so badly about receiving maybe information that's not quite true?
Yeah, I would direct parents to a reliable source of information. Pennsylvania Department of Health website is a good, reliable source of information. Even calling our crisis line, our crisis workers can direct parents to good resources of information. But the most important thing parents can do is try to restore some sort of normalcy and predictability and routine to their home life. You know, if it's a regular meal time, maybe a game time, a puzzle time, regular bedtimes, those sorts of things. can go a long way in restoring a sense of normalcy and predictability, like Keith said.
Do you find that there's any section of the population that may have a better grip on how to get through a pandemic situation? Like, I'm thinking about my father, who's 89, lived through, as a child, the Great Depression, and maybe we're facing some sort of similar situations here as we face COVID-19.
I think this is so unprecedented and uncharted that we're all sort of relying on one another and sort of feeling our way through the dark. I think the older generation who have lived through times of having less and kind of restrict their lifestyle for a certain period of time, I think the older generation would certainly have insight into that. But, even back then, folks could meet at the coffee shop and talk about what's going on and those sorts of things. And, again, we don't have that human touch with the COVID-19 outbreak.
Last week on InTouch, we had a talk with the United Way about 211, and that's an opportunity for people to call a national number to get help from different agencies that they may be needing. So you are a member of that large group of people that may be referred to people when they call 211, and there's also mental health numbers that they can call in Lycoming and Clinton County.
Yes, in Lycoming County, our crisis intervention line is staffed by crisis case managers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In Lycoming County, the phone number is 570-326-7895. In Clinton County, it's 570-748-2262. And there's also the SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services, has put out a line. Mm-hmm. There's a crisis text line. The Department of Human Services also in Pennsylvania also created what's called a warm line, where folks can call in and actually have someone on the other end of the line to speak with. So there's a number of options. If talking is not your thing, maybe texting, that sort of thing, that option is available as well.
What people at the other end of the phone, what kind of training do they have as far as helping out the people in the public who are giving them the call?
Well, all of our caseworkers are at least bachelor's level. They have training in crisis management, in de-escalation, in identifying mental health conditions, identifying when mental health conditions may be extreme, at which point, it's time to refer the caller for therapy or, psychiatry, something along those lines.
Have you ever been able to endorse those kind of counselors that are on the telephone as far as using the technology today to contact someone in a mental health field to get more of a clinical approach?
Actually, in response to the coronavirus pandemic, Department of Human Services is allowing all therapists, all psychiatrists and psychologists to practice telehealth right now. They've kind of waived a lot of the regulations around that, understanding that, we're trying to stay social distance and not have people out of their homes. So at this point, if you want to speak with a therapist or if you need psychiatric or psychological support beyond just our crisis staff, all of the local agencies, the outpatient agencies, are practicing telehealth and do have people available. They each have things set up so that they can talk with people. They can set up regular weekly appointments and speak with folks via telephone or FaceTime or one of the video telephone options.
People who may never have seen a counselor before may feel like, oh, I don't need that. But what kind of symptoms may people experience that have never had these kind of experiences before? I mean, where do you draw the line to say, I think I need some help?
A lot of the symptoms we discussed earlier are a natural response to a very unnatural situation. Mm-hmm. When it becomes extreme, when you're having maybe extreme mood swings, maybe periods of aggression, you feel like you're on the edge constantly. You're not sleeping, you're not eating, you may be even having thoughts of self-harm. At that point, those should all be red flags to the person to say, hey, I need help. This is getting out of my control. And everybody has a different point. They have a different point when they reach that. Mm-hmm. But it's a matter of having enough insight to say, okay, this is really, the pendulum has swung too far.
You do have the different groups and phone numbers that you can be using. So tell me again, the Lycoming Mental Health and Intellectual Disabilities 24-hour crisis intervention hotline. Go ahead and tell me that for Lycoming County.
Lycoming County, the phone number is 570-326-7895.
And for Clinton County?
Clinton County is 570-748-2262. And there's also a toll-free line for both Lycoming and Clinton, which would be 800-525-7938.
Will there ever be a time when someone may call because of someone else? They're worried about their spouse or their child. They need help that way. Can you also provide help for people that are calling for that reason?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be an informational sort of call where we could provide the caller with information and offer. We will offer to reach out to that person to have that one-on-one contact. It gets kind of difficult when it's through a third party, so it's always preferred to have that one-on-one, and we will ask and reach out to that person.
When people call, and is it always a person on hold? Like, will you be put on hold if it's like they won't ever get a busy signal? Is my question.
Correct. If they can't get, if all of the staff are on the phone, we have an answering service that will take their information and we will call them right back.
That sounds good. It's Lycoming Clinton mental health, intellectual disability programs. And we have that here with phone numbers, of course, on our Backyard Broadcasting websites. As you see this on our YouTube channel, you can always find those different numbers that you can use. What else can we help the community by maybe feeling a little more comfortable? You're here with us. You're able to help in these services. Anything else that we need to share with the public at this time so that they can feel a little more settled in these trying times?
Although there is a stay-at-home order in effect for the state, what we do is considered life-sustaining. So we are open. There are folks in the office. Jim is there today. We have a small crew of folks who go into the office every day. We ask that the public call us first. We don't really want walk-ins at the moment. But if someone needs to be seen in person, we don't just have to do this by phone. We are going out and meeting with families. There are some folks who need assistance with housing and obtaining food and things like that, and the casework staff are available to help connect them to those different services in the community.
So that's part of your Optum Public Crisis line as far as a warm line to help them get to those places?
Correct.
Well, Keith Wagner, Administrator for Lycoming Clinton Mental Health, as well as James Hicklin, County Mental Health Director, thank you so much for your time today and helping us get our community feeling a little better as we move forward through this pandemic.
Thank you, Freddi.
If you need information and answers about how you or a loved one can cope with unpleasant emotions at this time, call the 24-hour Crisis Intervention Hotline in Lycoming County, 570-326-7895. In Clinton County, 570-748-2262, or toll free 1-800-525-7938. You can also use the crisis text line by texting PA to 741-741. InTouch is locally produced in our studios at 1685 4 Mile Drive in Williamsport. To get in touch with us regarding questions, comments, or topic ideas, call weekdays between 8 and 5, 570-323-8200. You can also write to us at 1685 4 Mile Drive, Williamsport, PA 17701. Attention Freddi Hammer. Or email me at fhammer@backyardbroadcasting.com. For archived programs of our InTouch series, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Backyard Broadcasting. Each current weekly program is featured on the Backyard Broadcasting websites. Thank you for listening to InTouch, a production of Backyard Broadcasting.